This is nothing but that sports talk, where you have the game. New York, stand up and welcome to Nothing But That Sports Talk. I'm Knox Louison alongside the returning Knox Louison. Thank you for finally being back on the show again. It's been forever since what, the NFL season?
It's been that long?
Yes, it has. But let's just get into some NBA playoff talk. As you notice, the New York Knicks are back in the playoffs for the first time since 2013 when Melo got blocked by Roy Hibbert going for a layup.
The Knicks are back and the city feels different. You know, there is all this buzz that the Knicks are back. As much as I'm a Brooklyn fan, as much as I love the Nets, I think the Knicks being back adds a different feeling to the city and the anticipation, the excitement.
Exactly. And while we're on the subject, why don't you talk about your most memorable playoff games that you see for the New York Knicks since you started watching it?
Well, obviously, number one is going to be Allen Houston against the Miami Heat with the game winner. That was awesome. It was awesome because those teams they were meant to always go against each other. You know, the connection with Pat Riley and, some players like Anthony Mason going from one team to the other. But they just always were evenly matched. Although I do think the Heat had more talent. I think the Knicks just had more perseverance. And I think slightly at that point in time, I think Jeff Van Gundy might have been a little bit of a better coach than Pat Riley. So those memories and those games and those series were really good. Playoff moments. Let's see. Going to the finals in 94 was awesome. That entire run in 99 obviously was awesome too when they went to the finals. A lot of stuff, man. A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And you know what? This is back where the first round playoff series used to be a best of five when they took out the Miami Heat in the 99 NBA playoffs. And the Knicks, they weren't really expected to get there, especially since they've had a lot of injuries. And I remember watching field clips of when they had their terrible loss to Chicago Bulls, when they had their worst season in 99 after the Jordan years. And I remember they've had so many positive moves for the Knicks, whether it's Patrick Ewing's buzzer beaters or John Stockton dunking on Michael Jordan or Duncan past Michael Jordan, to be honest. Yeah. Just you can never forget that. Never forget it. And also you remember after that they swept the Atlanta Hawks, and that was the last time the Knicks had a playoff series against the Hawks, in case people forgot.
It's funny you mentioned that because you're right, that season they weren't expected to do well. Like they really weren't. They were expected to be good, but they weren't expected to go to the finals or anything like that. So injuries started piling up, and the things like the chemistry just wasn't there. So when they got the 8th seed, I was pretty confident that they would beat the Heat. Just being honest, I just thought that. Again, I think Pat Riley kind of underestimated the Knicks because he knew he had more talent on his team. But I think Jeff Van Gundy got the most out of the talent that he had on his team. So when the Knicks beat the Heat, I was happy, but I really didn't think they were going to beat the Hawks at the time. And not only did they beat them, they swept them. They ran through them. Another one of my favorite memories is Marcus Camby getting a rebound, and he goes coast to coast for this dunk. It was really amazing to see. So that Knicks team that year was really good. And you're right. That is the last time the Knicks played the Hawks. And the last time they played the Hawks, they did sweep them. I don't think they're sweeping them this year, but I do think the Knicks will win that series against the Hawks this year.
Yes, they will. And it's all a matter of whether or not they can maintain the same consistent efforts that they put into winning the games against the Hawks during the regular season and winning the games they won during the regular season in general. And there's also, and back to the 99, there's also this one moment where Larry Johnson hit a crazy 4-point play to defeat the Indiana Pacers. AKA the last time the Knicks defeated the Pacers in the playoffs.
And also, I mean, if we're going to tell history the right way, it was a bad call. Like, there's no way that that's a continuation. He fouled him. He took like 2 steps and then he shot the 3. But, history has as a 4-point play, so we'll let it live.
Yeah, you definitely have to. And the Knicks had so many memories in the playoffs in the 90s, and I know you enjoyed it. I mean, as a little kid, I wasn't really watching, but I know you enjoyed all the positives and negatives that happened with the New York Knicks.
Definitely. I was a diehard Knicks fan at that time, and I enjoyed it. I'll always remember those moments and the memories the Knicks provided. I eventually jumped ship, and I am not a Knicks fan now. But at the same time, as a New Yorker, I want them to be successful. I want them to win, and I want them to go against the Brooklyn Nets. And obviously, the Brooklyn Nets will run through them and destroy them. And, I'll be a very happy camper.
That's the same thing I said when I interviewed Ryan Walker last night, or in the last episode, I should say, because I told him this. My predictions, that's why I have the Wizards upsetting the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round, so the Knicks can have an easy run at it to the conference finals. and face the Brooklyn Nets when they get past the Boston Celtics game 1 tonight, and the winner of the Bucks and Heat matchup. Like, I want the Knicks and Nets to face off in the conference finals, especially since Marv Albert is going to be doing his last conference final series this year.
Okay, so let's get into it then. So let's do our Eastern Conference first round predictions. So in the 1-8 matchup, you have the Wizards beating the Sixers.
Yes, and that would only happen
based on what?
Based on if Robin Lopez can out-rebound on Joel Embiid and really contest him inside the paint, and if Raul Hachimura can improve on the offense and defensive struggles that you mentioned, when we was talking about it behind closed doors, and Russell Westbrook continue to provide the triple doubles, he can be, or should I say, be both the point guard and at least a small forward. He can literally shut down Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And plus, you don't want to say it yourself that you don't trust Doc Rivers' coaching system.
Okay, so I don't see how the Wizards beat the Sixers, because I usually when I look at NBA teams in the playoffs, I follow a simple format, and it's kind of slang, it's kind of joking, but it's the truth. Like, which team has more better players? You know, I think the Sixers just have a way better roster and have better players. I don't trust Glenn Rivers as a coach. I don't. He has a history of blowing leads. He has a history. He's a great motivator in getting guys to play well. He's not great at galvanizing a team to be successful. That being said, the Sixers just have far more talent than the Wizards, man. Like, with the Wizards, you got Russ at the top, you got Beal alongside with him. Rui Hachimura is a good offensive player, but at times he's abysmal defensively. The Wizards on a whole defensively are terrible. I think Robin Lopez is an underrated player, but let's be honest, the talent disparity between Robin Lopez and Joel Embiid is massive. So I hear you. You got this. You have the Wizards upsetting them. I have the Sixers winning pretty comfortably in 4 games.
Yeah, the Wizards, if when that happens, it's good. Take 7 games to beat them. But that's
okay. So you got Wizards in 7. I got Sixers in 4.
Yeah.
All right. So from 1-8, let's do 2-7.
2-7. Brooklyn versus Boston. We all know that we both wanted Boston to lose to Brooklyn. It's just a matter of how many games it's going to take, because how do we know that Jason Tatum's not going to go off with 50, or they're not going to have one of those games where they came back from 30-plus down to win like they did against San Antonio in the regular season game? How do we know that? I mean, even though they're without Jaylen Brown for the rest of the season, there are going to be other players on the Celtics that's going to step up. Marcus Smart's going to be their X factor. Not to mention you got Williams. You got there are more weapons Jason Tatum can work with besides Jaylen Brown. So besides Jaylen Brown. So that could be a small problem for the Brooklyn Nets. Not to mention this scoring defense is trash.
All right, so the Nets scoring defense is absolutely horrendous. The Nets give up points for free. I'm pretty confident that me, you, Marlon, the girls from That Girl Sports Talk, and at least 2 or 3 other your guests can score 100 points on the Nets easily. They just don't defend. Don't do it at all. It's non-existent in their game plan. And shout out to all those guests that you've had. They're all been great guests. I think that the Nets will win really comfortably, but I think they'll win in a gentleman's sweep. It'll be 5 games. Boston will get one. They're going to get one. There's going to be a night where that lack of defense just comes back to bite the Nets in the rear end, and Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker will go off. And so I got the Nets in 5. You have the Nets in how many?
I'll take him in the 5 too. As long as they keep their roster together and Kyrie Irving's mind is on the court and not somewhere else, I got the winning in 5.
Got it. All right. So what's the next one? 3-6?
Heat versus Milwaukee Bucks. I got Miami defeating them. Only this time it's going to be 7 games, not no 5 games like we saw in. Well, yeah.
So this one, I don't know. I'm a longtime Heat fan. I love Jimmy Butler. I think they're a really good team. And I think that one thing that's not been said enough about the Bucks haven't won games when they've been trailing. Whenever the Bucks are down by like 10 points, they don't come back. So the key is to outscore them early, but Miami's not one of the best offensive teams. As much as I love the Heat, as much as I love Jimmy Butler and Bam, I think Giannis is on a mission, and he's trying to erase all the doubts that people had about him last season. And I'm going to say that the Bucks win in 5 or 6. I don't think it'll be that close. And also, Drew Holiday is arguably one of the best defenders in the last 20 years of basketball, if we're being very honest about it. He's just that good. So whoever's on the perimeter, I feel confident that he kind of slows them down. So I got the Bucks in 6, and you got Miami in 7?
I got Miami in 7. And that will only happen if Jimmy Butler continues to provide the offense the Miami Heat need, and Tyler Hero can provide the crazy shooting that we saw last year. This year, it took some time for the Miami Heat to adjust to the playoff team that we see right now. Because let's not forget, they only had 2 months of the offseason to themselves before they had to get back on the court and play some regular season games. So
yeah, they started off really rough. I mean, I think they were like 7-17 or something like that to start the season. And they also had to deal with injuries to Gordon Dragic and then, COVID protocols and stuff like that. But since then, they've been one of the best teams in the NBA. So I hope they win, but I got Milwaukee.
Not to mention they had a crazy game winner off Brooklyn, courtesy of Bam Adebayo. I know you enjoyed that.
Yep.
All right. Now,
that brings us to 4-5. We both got the Knicks, right?
Yeah, I got the Knicks winning this one, but to me, it's going to take only 6 games. I don't see the Knicks giving up a game at Madison Square Garden. I don't.
I don't know about this series, man. I think Atlanta's a lot better than people give them credit for. And I think because they've had it's not even underrated. It just hasn't been spoken about. Like, people aren't talking about the Hawks at all. You saw that with Trae Young's Trae Young's All-Star game voting. He had I think he was top 5 vote getters last season. And this year he barely got a million votes. So they're having an under the radar season, and they've quietly had one of the greatest offensive seasons a team has ever had. They're going to bring some problems to the table against the Knicks with their offense. They just will. But I just think coaching is a factor. I think Tom Thibodeau is a better coach than Nate McMillan, although I think Nate McMillan is a really good coach. I think the Knicks will find a way to win the series. It might go 7, but I think the Knicks will find a way to series.
That's true. And let's not forget, Clint Capella had a 20 rebound game at one point this season. So
he's a good player.
If you see my most recent episodes where I talk about the Knicks, and I just literally had an episode where I interviewed Ryan Walker about the predictions the same way. Don't forget to check that out. But this time we're going to go a little bit more in depth on those series, because I think, as I mentioned, the New York Knicks are going to win this series. It's going to take them 6 games.
Okay, so you got 6. I got roughly 7.
Yeah. Now we on to the Western Conference. Now that it's actually confirmed that it's going to be the Jazz taking on the Memphis Grizzlies in a 1-8 matchup. And I see the Utah Jazz winning in 6. I mean, they're just more talented, experienced than John Morant's Memphis Grizzlies. What's to the top seed? It may not guarantee him getting to the next round, considering John Morant is going to have one of those games where he's going off for 30 points at least. And Dillon Brooks is going to be a serious fast break focal point for the Memphis Grizzlies offense. And not to mention, you got Jonas Valanciunas, who's an incredible rebounder, 3-point shooter for a big man. So those are some assets that needs to come into play, and Memphis is going to pull out this upset against the Utah Jazz. But I got the Jazz winning at 6. So
I have not been a believer in the Jazz all season. I don't think they're that good. I think they have benefited from having little to no turnover in the offseason. They brought back the same team from last year. They've also benefited from not being ravaged by COVID protocols. Honestly, Donovan Mitchell being injured is the only real deterrent their team has had all season. You look at a team like the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics have been ravaged with COVID protocols. They've been ravaged with injuries, and it shows in their record. You look at the Lakers, injuries, COVID protocol. You look at a lot of other teams, they've had problems. 3 of the most successful teams in the NBA this year, if not the 3 most successful teams, have had the least amount of COVID protocols, and that's the Jazz, the Suns, and the 76ers. I love Donovan Mitchell. He's one of my favorite players. I think Utah is ripe for an upset. I think they're going to get upset at some point in time, but maybe not in the first round. I'm not sure that Memphis has the experience to beat Utah. So I'm going to go with Utah in a tough series. I'm not sure if it's going to go 5 or 6, but it won't be an easy 5 or 6. Actually, no, it's going to be easy. I'll say Utah in 5 or 6. Yeah.
There's going to be at least a few close games. So you have John Morant making his playoff debut.
I hope so. Sometimes the moment gets too big for players, so we'll see. But so we both got Utah winning that series.
Yeah. Now it's on to the 2-7 matchup. Lakers and Suns, that's one of the only series people are saying that's going to be an upset because LeBron and AD, they both have more experience in the playoffs than Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. I mean, the only reason why you're in the second seed because you got Chris Paul. Well, Chris Paul has been known to turn bad teams into good teams and high-profile teams. This is the same guy that played alongside James Harden and got him to the conference finals in 2018. So, I mean, you know it's going to take 7 games regardless because the Suns are well put together and Chris Paul is one of the craziest floor generals in the NBA that a lot of people give him credit for. But LeBron don't lose in the first round because it's LeBron James. And yeah, when they're healthy, the Lakers could really turn it up.
So you have the Lakers in how many?
7 games.
Okay. I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think it is. I think people are discrediting the Suns way too much. The Suns are playing good basketball. Like, they are a good team. They're ran well. They're coached well. They have good players at good key positions. Mikal Bridges has had a great season. He shot the ball really well. He's been their quintessential 3 and D guy, and he's playing high levels of D, and he's shooting high percentages on his 3. Chris Paul is a great player, an all-time great player, and it's wildly disrespectful that he's not getting the top 3 MVP vote, but that's a different argument. If Anthony Davis wants to be the best big man on the court, the Lakers will steamroll through the playoffs and win and beat everybody. But if Anthony Davis plays like how he did against Golden State, where he's shooting the second most threes in the entire game and he's settling for jump shots and he's letting guys 6'7" push him out of the post, the Lakers are going to lose and they're going to get eliminated in the first round. This comes down to Anthony Davis. At this point in time, he has to assert himself as being the best player on the court every night, regardless if LeBron's his teammate or not. So if Anthony Davis looks like how he did before, the Lakers win in 5 or 6. If Anthony Davis plays like how he played against Golden State, the Suns will win this series, and it won't be close. So I don't really have a definitive answer because I just think those are 2 huge variables. Again, if Anthony Davis plays like we know him to play, the Lakers will win easily. If he doesn't, the Suns will run through them.
That is true, but a lot of people, let's not forget, you got LeBron James on your team. And if I know LeBron James like I know LeBron James, he'll eventually carry that team.
Yeah, but he's also LeBron James, age 36 now, coming off an ankle injury. He's not the same guy. Like, we can't expect him. He's the only player who we hold to the same standards because he set his standards so high, but he's not the same player he was before. He just isn't. And that's why it's important for Anthony Davis to step up.
That is also true, but this is the same LeBron. This is the same thing we said about LeBron James when he missed it in 2019, and he still bounced back and won a title. So, I mean, I know it's not going to last.
Yeah, but he had a season coming off. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I know it's not going to last forever, but the guy still has enough talent to continue leading teams to being one of the greatest playoff teams in the NBA.
I totally agree with that. I just think that at some point in time, age and time catches up to you. And at some point in time, we can't expect you to always be the best player. Someone else has to step up. And Anthony Davis just has to be that guy right now. So my final prediction, I guess I'm going to say, until LeBron loses in the first round, I can't go against him. So I'll say Lakers in 6.
That is fair. I got Lakers in 7. Now, on to the 3-6 matchup. This is going to be very interesting. You got the Denver Nuggets and the Portland Trailblazers. This is a 50-50 for me because the Nuggets, they're without Jamal Murray, but Jokic has been carrying the team. Not to mention he's a top 3 MVP candidate along with Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
Jokic is he's a point guard or playing the center at 7 foot. He can shoot the 3-pointer, whether it's from the step back or in the mid-range shooter. He can do everything.
Yeah. So you got a 50-50? You have a prediction?
My prediction, if Damian Lillard shows you guys game time, I'm going to pick the Portland Trailblazers to win this one.
This is a tough one. And this one, I think, will either be extremely close or a massive blowout. So everything you said about Jokic is correct. He's probably going to win MVP. He's been phenomenal this season. He's a 7-foot, 300-pound point guard, and he's amazing. Michael Porter Jr. is proving to be the player that he was recruited to be. He's been amazing as well. They're without Jamal Murray, which hurts. And I think the biggest problem I have with Denver is who is going to slow down or stop CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. I think traditionally teams have always been able to beat the Blazers because you can stop one of them because you have a defender who's good enough to at least slow down one of them. Denver doesn't have that. There's no perimeter defense on Denver whatsoever. So then it comes down to, does Jokic and Porter outscore Lillard and McCollum every single night? That's a tough task to ask of them. Lillard's literally one of the best players we've ever seen, and McCollum is one of the best scorers of his time. But I think Denver, I want Portland to win. I'm rooting for Portland to win, but I think Denver squeaks it out. I think Denver wins in you know what? I'm not going to do that. I want Portland to win. So let's say the Blazers in 7.
Yeah, Blazers in 7. I mean, well, I already mentioned.
Even though I don't think they'll win, but I want them to win. So
yeah, I'm now that I think about it, you got a point. Blazers in 7.
Blazers in 7.
Now on to the last playoff matchup. You got the Clippers and Mavericks in the first round again. Only this time the Mavericks are a higher seed and the Clippers are a lower seed.
They played last year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, that series, we had one of the most memorable shots we will ever see in the NBA that will last a lifetime, courtesy of Luka Doncic. But if the Clippers continue their consistency and they don't play like the team we saw blow a 3-1 lead against the Denver Nuggets, they're going to get past the Dallas Mavericks in this series again.
So you have the Clippers in how many?
Clippers in 6.
I think this will be the least competitive series of the entire playoffs, and I think the Cliplomats will beat them in 4 games really easy. I've seen Dallas play this year. They're not a good team. They're getting by having a couple of good players and one really good player. Porzingis is inconsistent with injuries and playing time and conditioning because he's just not on the court enough. They don't really have a chemistry together as a 1-2 because they don't play enough reps. They don't get enough reps together. Yeah, I think the Clippers win this one easily. Like, really.
Got a point. I mean, I originally had the Clippers.
Hot knife through butter.
I originally got the Clippers winning the series because the Mavericks, they're not going to go out without a fight this time. And usually teams come back at least somewhat hungrier than they have when they lost to them the previous year, but sometimes they don't. So, yeah, Clippers are going to get the series without much of a problem. Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty much our predictions for the first round. We will make our predictions for the second round once all the first round matches are completed. And this is going to be insane playoffs to watch because you got the New York teams in it. You got 2 rematches from the NBA bubble last year. And not to mention...
What's the second rematch? Oh, Milwaukee and Miami, yeah.
And not to mention LeBron James is going to try to win a first round series in the lowest seed that LeBron-led playoff team has ever had.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. This might be one of those Houston Rockets championships where, you know, you win and you come back not quite as good based on, you know, different factors, and you kind of have to win from being down in the hole. So this might be like the Rockets in, was it 95? Might be one of those type of situations. I think they'll play well. I think I expect this playoffs to be really good and really competitive. I think a lot of teams and a lot of players have a lot to prove. You got James Harden trying to prove a case. You got KD trying to prove his case. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on a redemption tour. LeBron and AD trying to prove their case. CP3, you know, he's brought a team who hasn't been in the playoffs for like 12 years to the number 2 seed. Utah is fighting for relevancy. They're trying to prove that this season wasn't a fluke. Miami's trying to prove that the bubble wasn't a fluke. You know, Giannis is trying to prove that, hey, I am still the best player in the NBA. You know, he was literally voted MVP 2 years in a row, and now he's not even in the top 3, and he's had probably a better season in terms of how he's played, and he's kind of forgotten because they kind of got embarrassed last year. Glenn Rivers has a lot to prove. You know, he's coaching a different team now, so there's a lot of teams, a lot of players to prove. I feel like this is going to be a historic playoff run because there's so much on the line for so many different teams and so many different organizations.
Exactly. And let's not forget that Philadelphia 76ers finished number 1, at least in the Eastern Conference for the first time since 2001. And they went all the way into the finals and got taken out by Kobe and Shaq's Lakers.
I think if Joel Embiid stays healthy, they have a chance of going to the finals, but I also think the Knicks are going to beat them. So Guess not.
Yeah, and the Knicks will beat them if they protect the leads, or if they do get the lead, they hold them. Because let's not forget the last time, the only reason why the Knicks lost that game against 76 is because they really much gave Danny Green free throws.
And also, I one of the problems with Philadelphia, no one brings it up, is Ben Simmons is not a factor offensively in the half court. So they're always going to be 4-on-5 offensively until he starts stretching the floor, or he just dominates in a different way that we've seen him do so far. They're a non-factor. They're a complete non-factor. It's just the truth. You can't win basketball playing 4-on-5.
Yeah,
you really start doing more.
And now wrap up this episode. Nothing but that sports star. Thank you for stopping by again, Knox. It's always nice having you on the show. And make sure you follow all the other interviews I've done. And keep up the WNBA interviews. Well, I'm telling everybody to continue to follow my WNBA interviews that I do. And to all the balls out there, New York, we're here.